After almost 5 years of using the same console for my live sound, my band, and my studio workflow, today is the day that I make a switch. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Evan, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a professional live sound engineer, studio nut, and band geek. I've been doing audio engineering professionally for the past 5 years. I've mixed hundreds of shows, been on multiple tours, and I've just done some pretty cool stuff. I've come a long way with my studio setup and my live sound production. I'm always trying to push the boundary to go further, improve my setup, improve my workflow, save time, and have more fun. And this big change for me is no exception to that. All right, so if you've watched my channel at all in the past, you probably know that I was deep in the Presonus Studiolive mixing system. I had one of their rack mixers, one of their physical consoles, and my band currently has one of the rack mixers still in our rack. Before now, I never really considered upgrading my console because it did everything that I wanted it to do, and I didn't have like a big enough reason to make the jump into a different ecosystem. At the main music venue that I work at, we use X32s, M32s, and now the Allen and Heath D-Lives, and I really felt that unless I spent like $10,000 or more on a new console, I wasn't really getting any more for my money. So in 2024, I went on my first tour with a band called Illumishade. I was lucky enough to use an SQ5, which is an Allen and Heath desk if you don't know. Now that's a small compact desk, and the other engineer that let me borrow it actually brought it over from Switzerland. After working on such a small desk, I was like, dang, this is doing everything that a big desk does in a smaller, more compact fashion. I really considered buying one, and if it wasn't gonna cost like $6,000 to $7,000 to get the console and a stage box and go all into that system, the console next to me might look a little different. Let me talk you through a couple of the reasons I stuck with the Presonus system for so long, and some of the things that I was looking for in a new console system. The biggest thing that actually drew me to the Presonus system in the first place is their fat channel strip processing. If you don't know what that means, basically in your channel where you have your EQ and compressor, you could switch out to different plugins to sort of get like some analog emulations and some different sounds. Not to mention you can do this on every channel, including buses, without having to use an insert like you do with the M32 or the X32. On top of that, the routing and the user-friendliness of that system just appealed to me, and it worked for so long. Even after using the M32 and the X32 at the music venue that I work at for so many years, I still didn't really find a reason to switch to that, considering I felt it would be sort of a lateral move. After using the rack mixer for so long, and then using the SQ5 as well, I knew that I enjoyed compact mixers that I could just take with me, plug in, and go. That way I didn't need a second person to help me flip the desk, I could take up less room on the stage or at front of house, and overall, a compact mixer just has everything I need without a giant size. And just like everybody else in the prosumer audio community, when Behringer dropped the rack and the compact version of their wing, I lost my mind. I was like, okay, hold up, you're telling me that I can have all the features that this thing has, the big giant touchscreen workflow, all the buses, all the inputs, all the channel strip processing, the plugins, the inserts, double the effects channels, double the buses, double the matrices, Dante capability, Waves capability, 3 AES 50 ports, 2 network ports, onboard Midas preamps, layer customization, and the list goes on for $2,500? So let me tell you the things that absolutely sold me when I looked at this thing for the first time. Number one, this is a stereo mixer. Let me repeat that. This is a stereo mixer. If you've never heard of this before, like me, you might be going, what the heck does that mean and why does it matter? Aren't all mixers stereo? You got left-right outputs, you can pair channels and make things stereo, what's the big deal? Now what this means is you can take one channel and patch 2 input sources into it. That means stereo keys, stereo tracks, things like that no longer require 2 faders. I don't have to patch the left and the right to separate channels and pair the channels and take up 2 faders and all that. This is obviously really big when you're talking about a small, compact console where you don't have a ton of faders. Let's keep going. This also means that my buses are stereo. I mix to buses. I have a drum bus, a guitars bus, a vocal bus, etc. Before, on the M32, the Presonus, any of those, I would have to take two buses, pair them together, and make my drum bus. Now, I just have one bus that's stereo, and it's one bus, one fader. Same goes for your in-ear mixes. This has 16 buses, which means if you want, you can have 16 stereo in-ear mixes. And you could technically have more if you use the matrices and the aux mixes too. Speaking of matrices, you now have 8 stereo matrices. The concept of a stereo mixer was a little foreign to me at first. It took me a minute to kind of get used to it, but once you realize how much space you can save and how much power that gives you, it really is a game changer. Let's move on to point number 2, and that's the channel processing. Now, just like my favorite features of my Presonus desks, now with the wing, I can switch out my EQ, my compression, and I can add pre and post fader inserts. I can even switch out my gate for different types of expanders or gates, or even a preamp model. Speaking a little more about the effects processing, you get 16 effect slots now, which is double what the M32 and the X32 had. The wing has all sorts of compressors, EQs, tape saturation, subharmonic synthesizers, reverbs, pedals, amp sims. I mean, this thing is packed full of plugins. This is miles beyond what I had in the Presonus and definitely more than you get in the M32. And the best part, you don't have to pay any extra for them like you do with some other companies. This brings us to number 3, which is sort of a combo point, but we're talking about the routing and the sheer channel count and bus count that this console gives you. The way the routing menu is laid out in this wing is super user-friendly, super self-explanatory, and it just makes so much sense. You just pick your source and you pick your destination and you're good to go. You can color code things, you can label things, you can get all crazy with it if you want to. Plus, you can even assign an alternate input source to your channel, so if you want to switch to a backup mic mid-show, or you want to flip your whole show to a virtual sound check, you can do that. Speaking of inputs, this thing has got like 380 something input sources that you can route into your channels, through your buses, write out the direct outputs. Again, wherever you want to route them, you can route them, but this thing has got a ton of inputs to choose from. Which brings me right into the Waves card option, the Dante card option. You got 3 AES-50 ports, 2 additional network ports for your routers and your internal Waves or Dante card that you may choose to put in this thing. Big pillar number 4 is the fact that I can customize a lot of stuff on this. Now, a lot of consoles have like a user layer where I can arrange my favorite channels onto for the show. Let's say I want my kick, my snare, my buses, my lead vocal, my effects returns, maybe some house music, all on one layer so I don't have to jump around once I get the show started. Not only do I have 2 user layers, I can also rearrange any channel on any layer. This is something you can't do in most entry-level consoles, and you don't get those features until you step up to some of like the Avids, the Digicos, the D-Lives, the Yamahas, and those consoles. You can definitely get yourself in quite the mess here with the amount of customization and input routing that this has, but if it's my personal console, I'm usually gonna know where everything is and lay it out in the way that I want. If you're trying to buy this for like a house desk, it's still great because when you reset the desk, everything's one-to-one, and again, the routing page is so user-friendly that most people can learn it in a few minutes. All right, let's wrap it up with reason number 5, and that's the portability of this console. Like I said earlier, I went on tour for the first time last year, and it really got me wanting a compact mixer that I could fly with someday. If you've seen any of my other videos, you also know that I travel around a lot, and a lot of the shows that I'm doing, I'm either by myself or I have one other helper. And having a console that I can just pull out of a box and set up by myself is definitely going to be a game changer for me. I've had this console for about a month now. It took me a little bit to learn all of the nooks and crannies and settings and customizations you can do with it because it's got a ton. But the more I dive into it, the more excited I am to use it this year and going forward with my live shows. If you want to see any specific tutorial videos or demonstrations with this, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to make some content about it. Also, if you have any questions about the wing or the system or anything else that you've seen in my videos, feel free to ask me in the comments. Again, I love chatting with you guys. I love answering questions, helping out where I can. Last but not least, if you got something out of this video, enjoyed it in any way, do me a big favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I really appreciate it, it helps out the channel a lot. I'm just so stoked to use this console and I can't wait to share more about it with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.